All right, folks. Chapter 9, last chapter. Hello. There we go. Hit the right button. So chapter 9, module 9A. There's two last modules for tonight.
Maybe she just came in and
Say,
I didn't have a chance to put her on the schedule.
okay. Safety and amateur radio.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody for a little bit. Then I forgot I have to unmute myself. So tonight, electrical injuries. Oh, come on.
Let me preface this a little bit, Jim.
Okay.
We're going over general electrical principles and hazards, that sort of stuff, like batteries and 110 power. Then we get into a little bit of RF safety in here. There are generally 3 questions coming out of, or is it just 2 questions coming out of here on that? So the state does regulate electricity and radio waves in your shack through the electricians and the National Electric Code that they adopt. So when we get to some of these things, I may speak up a little bit. I generally teach this in the class. So I'll wait till Jim finishes and then I'll jump in with some tidbits about the questions. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. So electrical injuries, you can be injured with shocks and burns. Low voltages can cause enough current to create problems. And equipment today uses lower voltage than tube equipment, but it can still cause burns.
Okay, let me go back on that chart there. 1 milliamp is not a lot of current, but when you have 100 milliamps to 250 milliamps of 60 cycles, like the wall outlet of current going across the heart will start to vibrate versus actually pump, and that's when you need the chest to be shocked to get back into rhythm on that. So it's not a lot of current at that point. But 1 or 2 milliamps is enough to trip your GFI breakers. But when you get between 50 and 70 milliamps, your muscles will freeze and you can't release. And all you'll hear are your partners like that. The problem with 70 milliamps, the longer the current runs, it finds a better path and it increases and it gets closer to that 100 milliamps. If that 100 milliamps, 60 cycles goes across the heart, then it interrupts the beat of the heart. So that's generally not a problem with 110, but more people get hurt with 110 because they get wet hands and wet shoes, which reduces the resistance. It's just something you need to be aware of, and that's general electrical principles. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey,
Okay.
one other question.
Yeah.
Daniel, let's say at 5 milliamps and you happen to be in your bare feet on a wet floor. Is that reaction going to change significantly?
You'll jump. It's not really dangerous at that point.
Okay.
The dangerous voltage has on these question pool has generally been about 30 volts. You'll feel the shock at that point, and you can pull back. But when you're getting up toward 100 volts, then you'll get into the place where your muscles will freeze and you can't release, and that's when it starts getting dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So electrical safety. Avoid contact is the most efficient way of practicing electrical safety. Unplug the equipment before working on it and keep one hand in your pocket. Make sure the equipment is grounded and use power from a GFCI protected circuit.
That's ground fault circuit interrupt. And it flips about a couple milliamps when it misses the current.
Mitigating electrical hazards. If working on live equipment is required, remove your jewelry, avoid unintentional touching of circuitry, and never bypass safety interlocks. And
The
then
the safety interlocks is a little switch that when you open the case, it turns the power off. Go ahead.
and then discharge any high voltage points and components to a ground. And then watch for capacitors. They can store the charge after the power is off. And then for storage batteries, they're dangerous when they're shorted. Responding to an electrical injury. Remove the power is the first thing. Have an on-off switches and circuit breakers clearly marked. Install an emergency master power switch and make sure your family knows how to use it. And then call for help. Learn CPR and first aid.
Your fire departments in your different areas will provide CPR and first aid classes. It may cost a little bit, but go ahead and check with your local fire station.
Electrical grounding and circuit protection. Make sure your station wiring meets code. Most ham equipment does not require special wiring or circuits. Use 3-wire power cords. Use circuit breakers, circuit breaker outlets, or ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCI circuit breakers or outlets. Use proper fuses or circuit breaker size. And don't overload single outlets or circuits.
Okay, let's go back to the first one there. Make sure your station wire meets code. There are a bunch of electricians who are in our amateur circuits. One is Jim Monson, has been on the Mike and Key board and like that. And they're more than willing to help you and check things out for you. When you become an amateur, after you pass your test here shortly, you've joined a family of people that are willing to help. Now, there's a couple that aren't, but just avoid those, and you'll find them out you'll find out who they are real fast. But don't be afraid to ask questions, because we'd rather you ask questions than anybody get hurt.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jim.
Grounding and bonding at RF. RF burns from hot spots at high RF voltage. Don't cause serious injuries at a ham power level. Prevent it by bonding or connecting equipment together with heavy wire or strap. Braided strap is not recommended at RF. Prevent by keeping people away from antennas and radials or counterpoise wires. Ground equipment for AC safety. Lightning protection. Ground antennas and towers to the local code. Use 8-foot ground rod for each of the tower legs. Bond rods to the tower leg and other rods.
Okay, Jim, just stop right there. Bonding is not soldering. Solder melts about 200 degrees and then it's useless. Bonding is bolting it or welding it together. And then the one above that is 8-foot. Ground rods are at least 8 foot or longer. There's a question that's 4 foot. Just throw that one out, that answer out. Rods are at least 8 to 12 foot long, 8 foot completely in the ground. Go ahead.
Ground components should be as short as possible. When using lightning arresters on a single ground plate, use lightning arresters on a single ground plate where cables enter the house. Unplug and disconnect equipment, including telephones and computers, and feed lines if lightning is expected.
Hey, Daniel,
Yes.
you want to describe why the ground connection should be as short as possible? That's a pretty important one.
Yeah, there's two things there I was going to mention, and also you avoid sharp bends. Lightning, when you're looking at 1,000,000 volts and lots of current, it will find its own path. So you want to make it short as possible to the ground so it gets away from your equipment and your tower and your antennas and all that. And you also don't want to make sharp bends, because the lightning with that kind of voltage will just arc across to the next thing it can find. It's looking for the easiest path to ground. So keeping it as short and without bends is really important.
Thank you.
RF exposure. Electromagnetic radiation, EMR, is not the same as radioactivity. It's a much lower energy. RF energy heats body tissues. Heating depends on the RF intensity and frequency. If precautions are taken, RF exposure is minimal and not dangerous. RF intensity. The power density measured in watts per square centimeter. The higher the power density means higher RF exposure. RF absorption varies with frequency because of the body part size. Safe exposure levels have been established by the FCC. And here's the chart of the maximum permissible exposure, or MPE. And as you can see, from the lower frequencies up to 3.0 megahertz, power density is up to 100 for controlled. And then it has uncontrolled is the dashed line. But then from 3 to 30, that level drops down to just 1 milliwatt per centimeter squared. And then from 30 to 300, it's at the point, or at the 1, and then it goes back up. So
the difference
these are
in
the
the
recommended.
the controlled and the uncontrolled. The controlled is for people who
It
know
goes
about
through
radio.
this in the next
Okay,
slide.
next one. Yeah.
Yep. RF environment, controlled environment. You know where people are standing in relation to your antenna, and you can do something about it. High power density is allowed because you can make adjustments if needed. But in an uncontrolled environment, you have no control of people near your antenna, and lower power density is allowed because you cannot control or adjust the exposure to people.
And that'd be like someone walking down the sidewalk beside your tower. You can't control them walking down the sidewalk, but if you're further away in the middle of your yard, you can control that.
Okay. Duty cycle and duty factor. Duty cycle is the percentage of time that a transmitter is on during the evaluation period from 0 to 100%. The duty cycle is equal to 100 times the time on divided by the total time. Duty factor is the same as duty cycle, but is given in a number from 0 to 1.0. Higher duty cycle or factor means higher average power density and exposure. Mode duty cycle accounts for the different characteristics of the transmitted signal's waveform. Let's go back over this. So here's a chart of the common duty cycles for single sideband, conversational, 20 to 30%. Single sideband, AFSK is 100, slow scan TV is 100. So these are all the average duty cycles for the common modes that you would be using. And this chart is in the book. Forgot what page that was on.
You want to describe why AM is so low?
AM is amplitude modulation, and it's varying in power. It's up to, say if you're running 100 watts, it can be up to 100 watts, but a lot of times it's down to 10 to 20 watts, and it varies up and down, always varying up and down. So you don't have an average. Your average is about 20%. You have it so it can produce 100 watts on your loudest sounds. It will average about 20% of that. So you're figuring from 100 watts, you figure 20 watts.
Yeah. Thank you.
So So this chart here is on page 9-16. It's table 9.5 if you want to look at it later. RF exposure evaluation. All fixed stations must perform an exposure evaluation. Use an online calculator is the easiest, and model exposure with software is a little more difficult, or measuring the RF power density is the most difficult. At lower power levels, no evaluation is required. This varies with the frequency, for example, below 50 watts at VHF.
You want to look at page 9-14. That is the power levels that above those power levels, you then have to do the calculations. Below them, you don't. That's table 9.4 on 9.14. Have you guys turned to that?
Yep.
That's a real critical table on that. Above these power limits, if you have an amplifier on your HF radios, because most HF radios are 100 watts, if those that output is above these levels on these bands, then you need to do the calculation. And it's one of the things you need to keep in your logbook too. If you have a question, get on the nets, ask for help. We'll help you get past the test on the thing, but when you actually go to set your radio up, ask for help. Because there's lots of people that are willing to help you and keep you safe and your neighbors and family safe. Go ahead, Jim.
Yep. Reevaluate exposure when station equipment or operating frequencies change. Reducing RF exposure. Relocate or reorient the antennas, raise the antenna higher, or reduce the antenna gain, or reduce the RF power output. Change to a lower duty cycle mode.
Those are the things we do to mitigate the situation. If we find that by doing the calculations, we are over the maximum explosive power levels, they're on table 4-9 on 9.14. Then when these are the things we do to mitigate the situation and get our radiation, our radio waves under the values in table 14, on page 14.
The good thing is most of the equipment that is out for sale that you buy is about 100 watts on HF, and that's right below the limits on all of the, well, 15 meters is right at 100.
Yeah,
And
if
then,
you're 21 megahertz or below that, you don't have to worry about it.
yeah. And then when you start buying VHF and UHF, most of those are 50 watts or so. So most of the time you don't have to do it, but definitely keep this chart handy.
50 watts is generally the power output of your mobile radios for VHF and UHF.
Yeah. Speaking of mobile safety, mobile installations, make sure you secure all equipment and place the equipment where you can operate it safely while driving. Know your local rules for use of communication equipment while driving. Don't drive and talk. And you may need to use hands-free microphones. Power line safety. Keep antennas well away from power lines. Check for power lines before installing antennas in trees. Provide a minimum of 10 feet of clearance if an antenna falls. And never attach antennas or guide lines to utility poles or structures.
The 10-foot rule is if a power line is over 750 volts, you have to stay 10 foot away. In my professional opinion, I've been there more times than not, and much more times than I wanted to be, and 10 foot is not far enough away. When you're attaching antennas to guy lines or utility pole structures, the utility company may get mad at you, fine you, and cause you for trespassing on that. But the big thing is you could come in contact with high voltage. So that's a tricky question there when we get to it.
Yep. I'm like Daniel. I want to stay as far away as I can from them power lines. Tower work, if you have the money. Basic tower safety. Wear proper clothing, a hard hat, and eye protection. Use a proper climbing harness, not a lineman's belt or a rock climbing gear. Don't climb a crank-up tower supported only by its lift cable. Block it and secure it first.
If you have to climb, if a crank up tower has to be climbed, call me. I've got tricks on that. You don't climb them, even when they're all the way down. What happens is the upper sections slide inside the lower sections, and if it slips, you can cut fingers and toes off.
Yep.
So it's very, very dangerous to climb them. I'd rather put ladders up against them and work that way. And if I have to climb it, I will, but I do have what methods to block it and secure it. So if you got a problem with one, call me.
Yep.
I'd love to come down to Florida, by the way.
Use a gin pole to lift heavy items.
Now, I don't know if they show you a gym pole here in the picture, but a gym pole is a tube that has a clamp on the bottom and a pulley at the top. The rope goes through the pole, the tube, and it comes out the block on the top. It is used to raise antennas or tower sections above the top section. And you're standing at the top of the section, you raise one up, you can tie it in, bolt it in, then you move the clamp up and raise another one. It takes at least two people, if not three, a couple on the ground, one on the tower to tie things in or loosen things up, take it off. But it is very easy to take towers and antennas, put towers and antennas up and take them apart that way. I can do it without a gym pole, but I am a professional.
Hey, Daniel,
Yes.
on the gin pole, it's kind of interesting. There's a question about gin poles that we'll come to in a little bit. But,
yes.
And it kind of defines it. But if you go to the glossary in the book, they ain't no gin pole in the glossary.
Yeah.
Is there a vodka pole there?
Single malt scotch.
Don't work alone. Use a ground crew. All right. Practice questions. Let's get that gin pole question.
That and the beverage antenna, right?
That with your beverage antenna.
That's so you can hear better.
Which of the following is a safety hazard of a 12-volt storage battery? Shorting the terminals can cause burns, fire, or an explosion. It'll do some pretty heavy arcing. I accidentally got a little screwdriver across one, and it actually ate a chunk out of the tip of the screwdriver.
Yeah, it will melt the metal. Yeah, there's a lot of current in a car battery, which is what they're talking about here.
Yep. What health hazard is presented by electrical current flowing through the body? All of the above.
I think all of the above. Yeah.
It may cause injury by heating the tissue. It may disrupt the electrical functions of cells, and it may cause involuntary muscle contractions where you just can't let go of it. In the U.S., what is connected to the green wire in a 3-wire electrical AC plug?
It's always safety ground.
Safety ground.
Either it's green or it's a bare wire, and electricians will tape the wire out about 6 inches or a foot from a outlet box or whatever they're tied into. It may be down the tube, maybe something different, but they'll always have it either taped white, red, black, or green according to what wire it is. And the green wire is your ground. You never disconnect it.
What is a good way to guard against electrical shock at your station?
On these safety questions, check all the above very carefully here. And this is another one where all the above are correct. Is use a 3-wire cord and plugs for all your equipment. Connect all the AC equipment to a common safety ground, and use a circuit protector or ground fault interrupter or fuse on all your circuits. So that's all of the above.
Yep. Which of these precautions should be taken when installing devices for lightning protection in a coaxial cable feed line? This is where you mount all of the protectors on a metal plate that is in turn connected to an external ground rod.
On our tower sites at top of the mountains, this copper plate is a 1/4 inch thick, generally 18 inches wide and about a foot tall. It's a hefty piece of copper, very expensive, and all kinds of wires are bolted to it.
What safety equipment should always be included in home-built equipment that is powered from 120 volts AC circuits? Always make sure you have a fuse or a circuit breaker in series with the AC hot conductor.
And the hot is going to be the red or the black wires.
Yep. What kind of hazard might exist in a power supply when it is turned off and disconnected? You might receive an electrical shock from the charge stored in large capacitors.
Daniel, is that always electrolytic capacitors you got to worry about, or are there other capacitors that store large amounts of electric?
Primarily, it's electrolytic, which is either got a silver case, a black case, or a blue case. They're from a 1/2 inch tall to sometimes they be 3 or 4 inches tall and an inch in diameter. You'll find them in your power supplies. That's why they're almost in all electronics in their power supply, and they'll hold a charge to the discharge. It's like a battery with a one-time shock value that can actually throw you across the wall, across the room into a wall. Yeah.
Thanks.
When should members of a tower work team wear a hard hat and safety glasses? At all times when any work is being done on the tower. Yeah, you don't want falling objects and crack the head open. What is a good precaution to observe before climbing an antenna tower? Put on a carefully inspected climbing harness or a fall arrestor and safety glasses. Under what circumstances is it safe to climb a tower without a helper or an observer?
Most everybody gets this question correct. The answer is never. Yeah. All my classes, they jumped that one out. That's an easy question.
Yeah, never.
Don't overthink these questions.
Yep. Which of the following is an important safety precaution to observe when putting up an antenna tower?
Stay away from power lines.
Look for and stay clear of any overhead electrical wires. What is the purpose of a gin pole? To lift tower sections or antennas. What is the minimum safe distance from a power line to allow when installing an antenna? Enough so that if the antenna falls unexpectedly, no part of it can come closer than 10 feet to the power wires. What is an important safety rule to remember when using a crank-up tower? This type of tower must not be climbed unless retracted or mechanical safety locking devices have been installed. What is considered to be a proper grounding method for a tower? Separate 8-foot long ground rods for each tower leg bonded to the tower and each other. Why should you avoid attaching an antenna to a utility pole? The antenna could contact high voltage power lines.
Now, there's a couple other answers that sound good on this question, but we want the best answer, and this is the best answer.
You know, in the next round that I do this technician stuff, I think I'm actually going to put all of the things. I'll
Well, that is kind of a tricky question on here. The best answer is
Yeah.
you can come in contact with the high voltage power line. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to make a difference on it.
Yep. Which of the following is true concerning ground conductors used for lightning protection? Sharp bends must be avoided and make
Yeah, there's
them.
two answers here on these questions. One is sharp bends and one is short and direct. So this question, only the sharp bends is available. But
Which of the following establishes grounding requirements for an amateur radio tower or antenna?
this is one time the FCC is not in charge of that. That is the your local electrical inspectors in every state establishes the electrical code on that. It comes out of what they call the National Electric Code Book, which is changes every couple years. We just got into, I think, 2018, 2020. Our electrical inspector for the labor and industry in Washington has sometimes he doesn't upgrade it, and sometimes he does. It's about $130 books for the electricians, but that's the current one. It's generally made by fire people, but it's approved by each state and their electrical safety people.
Okay. Which of the following is good practice when installing ground wires on a tower for lightning protection? Ensure that connections are short and direct. What type of radiation are VHF and UHF radio signals? Those are non-ionizing radiation. What is the maximum power level that an amateur radio station may use at VHF frequencies before an RF exposure evaluation is required? 50 watts PEP at the antenna.
That's peak envelope power.
And that's our little chart on 9.14. What factors affect the RF exposure of people near an amateur station antenna? All of the above. Frequency and power levels of the RF field, distance from the antenna to a person, and the radiation pattern of the antenna.
And you, on a vertical, it's omni. On a beam, it's directional. So you always take the maximum radiation power. When people are twice as far apart, they get a fourth the radiation. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. Why do exposure limits vary with frequency? The human body absorbs more RF energy at some frequencies than at others.
And that we found out by practice like that. When they started looking at it, they found that the police officers who using radar guns had eye damage. And this FCC has created a Bulletin 65, which is the Bible for everybody who uses radios and signals like that. Go ahead.
Which of the following is an acceptable method to determine that your station complies with FCC RF exposure regulations?
Remember to look at all of the above very carefully on these safety questions. And here we're talking about FCC OET, Office of Electronic, I want to call it technology, it's not. Bulletin 65 that came out about 20 years ago. By calculating on a computer modeling, we got a member of the Mike and Key who's an expert on that. And by measuring with a field strength meter and using calibrated equipment. And they're like a little radio that shows you how strong the signal is on what frequency. It doesn't read the signal, interpret, give you the voice or whatever out of it. It just tells you there's a signal on this frequency that's so many microwatts per centimeters squared. So all three of these are appropriate ways to do that. If you have a question, get on the nets, ask for help. There's someone out there that's eager to show off their fancy equipment they bought, and they only used it once. So they want to help you so they can justify their purchase.
Yep.
You speak from experience, eh?
Yeah, I've been around those geeks.
What could happen if a person accidentally touched your antenna while you were transmitting? They might receive a painful RF burn.
It doesn't go very fast, as fast as like a cigarette lighter burn or fire burn. It's very painful. It actually goes in and cooks the muscles inside there and gets into the nerves. So it does last quite a bit, sometimes 6 months, a year or two.
Wow. Which of the following actions might amateur operators take to prevent exposure to RF radiation in excess of FCC supplied limits? Relocate your antenna.
Typically higher.
How can you make sure that your station stays in compliance with RF safety regulations? By reevaluating the station whenever an item of equipment is changed. Why is duty cycle one of the factors used to determine safe RF radiation exposure levels? It affects the average exposure of people to radiation.
Generally, they'll have a test period of 6 minutes. And if you're running 2 watts for 3 minutes or 3 watts for 2 minutes, that's going to be 6 minute watts, and they're of equal value. You can run 6 watts for a minute or 1 watt for all 6 minutes, and that's still the same average power of the situation. Most of the time, even net controllers don't talk half the time. So they're talking maybe a third of the time. So out of the 6 minutes, they'll be talking 2 minutes. So if they're running 50 watts or 2 minutes, then that's 100 minute watts. So that's how we kind of calculate it. You're looking at a 6 minute period of time on these.
Okay. What is the definition of duty cycle during the averaging time for RF exposure? That is the percentage of time that a transmitter is actually transmitting.
And also they should have added in that question the power level too. But it's generally considered the percentage of time the transmitter is spending. If you're an AM, your amplitude, your power level is varying. If you're FM, your power level is constant.
Okay. How does RF radiation differ from ionizing radiation or radioactivity? RF radiation does not have sufficient energy to cause genetic damage. If the averaging time for exposure is 6 minutes, how much power density is permitted if the signal is present for 3 minutes and absent for 3 minutes rather than being present for the entire 6 minutes? It's 2 times as much. What should be done to all external ground rods or earth connections? Bond them together with heavy wire or conductive strap. What is the purpose of a safety wire through a turnbuckle used to tension guy lines?
Now, a turnbuckle is it's got a U-shaped box with forward threads on one side and reverse threads on the other side, and two screw eyelets coming in. And it's used when it's loose. You screw them the turnbuckle together, and it tightens up the tension between the two eye loops on the ends. If you don't put a wire through there, that turnbuckle will unturn and they'll naturally lose. We had a guy in Valdez in Alaska years ago who flew the F-30, the SR-32 planes, the spy planes. He put his tower up in Valdez, and watching TV one night, he heard bing, 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 and all three of his turnbuckles had loosened up and let his guy wires go so his tower is freestanding. He came back up to CAP and told us a horrible story, but we learned it the hard way through his experiences.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the end of Module 9A. We have one more module here, 9B. Nine B module is about RF interference, or RFI. Radio frequency interference, or RFI, are signals that interfere with radio reception. Interference can be from your station or to your station. Solving the problem might take a little detective work. Types of RFI. Direct detection. Offending signals get into the electronic circuits to cause interference. Or an overload is a strong signal that overwhelms the ability of the receiver to reject it. Or RF current, which can be picked up by the cables of consumer equipment.
Any wire is an antenna, and that's what happens here. Okay.
Or transmitted harmonics, they must be filtered out by the transmitter. Those are your 4 types of RFI. Filters. Filters attenuate or reduce the signals. A high pass will reduce the low frequency signals. A low pass will reduce the high frequency signals. And a band pass will only pass a range of signals. And a notch reduces a narrow range of signals. Selecting the correct filter reduces understanding the source of the interference. Ferrite chokes. Creates impedance or an opposition to AC on cables and wires. It can be used to block RF current that causes interference to entertainment equipment, microphones, monitors, amplifiers, etc. You wind your cable through a ferrite core to create the blocking impedance. Cable TV interference usually is the result of broken shielding somewhere in the cable, such as loose connections or broken connections or corroded connections, and is usually solved by the proper cable maintenance by the cable supplier. And that does unfortunately include the lines up on the telephone lines. I've seen the cable TV people come down and fix those. Noise sources. Electrical arcs such as motors, thermostats, electric fences, and neon signs. Power lines. Motor vehicle ignitions or alternators. Switching power supplies. and computers, networks, and TV sets. Some RFI guidelines. Operate your equipment properly. Eliminate interference in your own home. Use a good station building practices to eliminate unwanted signals, such as using shielded wire and cables, shielded equipment, and good connections and filters. Dealing with RFI. Take interference complaints seriously. Make sure that you're really not the one that causes the demonstrate that you don't interfere within your own home. And offer to help eliminate the RFI even if you are not at fault. And then consult ARRL RFI resources for help and assistance. Part 15 rules applies only to unlicensed devices. Unlicensed devices may not interfere with licensed services such as amateur radio. Unlicensed devices must accept any interference they receive from licensed services. RFI from and to unlicensed devices is the responsibility of the users of such devices.
Now, when you're dealing with this, you want someone else to tell your neighbor that your antenna is interfering with his TV, and his TV is a Part 15 device, and it's his problem. So we have what they call the interference committee, and you get on the net and find one of those guys from a town like Bellevue or Medina to come over and tell your neighbor that he bought a cheap TV and he's got to fix it.
What
Hey, Daniel, excuse me, Daniel, question on that one. Do you see any problems coming in with the remotely controlled vehicles like your drones and stuff like that? Or is that you're on the separate frequencies, you don't have to worry about it?
With drones, they're generally using the spread spectrum, and it's virtually eliminated the interference on that. That's up generally in the 220 range. And we used to have a big problem with channel 6 on our TVs and 6 meters. But since they went to digital just above the 220 band, we're not having the interference issues we had with TVs before.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What the rules say. The bottom line, if your station is operating properly, you are protected against interference complaints. But be a good neighbor because they are probably not familiar with Part 15 rules and regulations. Electrical safety, grounding, and circuit protection in the home. Make sure your home is up to code. Most ham equipment does not require special wiring or circuits. Use 3-wire power cords. Use circuit breakers, circuit breaker outlets, or ground fault interrupter GFI circuit breakers. Ground fault interrupter or GFI circuit breakers. Use the proper fuse or circuit breaker size. Don't overload single outlets. And for RF grounding is not the same as AC safety grounding. Bonding is more accurate. Keep all equipment at the same RF voltage. Current will not flow between the pieces of equipment, which can cause RF feedback. Minimizing RF hotspots or RF burns. Use a solid strip or a solid stripe of a wire strap there. Use solid strap of wire for the best RF connection. I don't know why sometimes that happens.
Yeah, the reason is the RF will run down the surface. So you want more surface area versus a solid round wire. So that's why they say a solid strap, more surface area.
You don't want a strip in there or a stripe? I don't know why I looked at that. Just other words come out of my mouth. Weird.
You're gonna get me in trouble. My wife may be listening.
Oh.
It's the
Well,
gin
let's.
pole.
Yeah, it's the gin pole talking.
Yeah, I guess so.
Let's get to them practice questions. What would cause an broadcast AM or FM radio to receive an amateur radio transmission unintentionally? The receiver is unable to reject strong signals outside the AM or FM band. Which of the following can cause radio frequency interference? All of the above: fundamental overload, harmonics, or spurious emissions. Which of the following is a way to reduce or eliminate interference by an amateur transmitter to a nearby telephone? Put an RF filter on the telephone.
They have DSL filters, and that will work very well too.
How can overload of a non-amateur radio or TV receiver by an amateur signal be reduced or eliminated? Block the amateur signal with a filter at the antenna input of the affected receiver. Which of the following actions should you take if a neighbor tells you that your station's transmissions are interfering with their radio or TV reception? Make sure that your station is functioning properly and that it does not cause interference to your own radio or television when it is tuned to the same channel. That's where you can say, see, it's your TV, not mine.
Yeah. That's where you check your own equipment first before you open your mouth. You don't want to be embarrassed.
Yep. Which of the following can reduce overload to a VHF transceiver from a nearby FM broadcast station by a band reject filter?
I thought you're going to have us move to Florida.
What should you do if something in your neighbor's home is causing harmful interference to your amateur station? All of the above. Work with your neighbor to identify the offending device. Politely inform your neighbor about the rules that prohibit the use of devices which cause interference, and check your station and make sure it meets the standard of good amateur practice.
Make sure, yeah, this is kind of in the reverse order. You check your station first, and then you inform your neighbor, and then work with them. But you might want to also call the interference committee and the amateur groups to have one of them tell your neighbor the bad news. So, because you got to live with your neighbor, and he doesn't, he gets to go home.
Yep.
You use other amateurs to help you out, because a lot of us have been through some of these problems.
What is a Part 15 device? That is an unlicensed device that may emit low-powered radio signals on frequencies used by a licensed service. What is a symptom of RF feedback in a transmitter or transceiver? Reports of garbled, distorted, or unintelligible transmissions. What should be the first step to resolve cable TV interference from your ham radio transmission?
I think this one is check your own equipment first.
Be sure all TV coaxial connectors are installed properly.
Make sure they're tight.
Yep.
Yeah. Just do a quick check.
What can happen if a lead acid storage battery is charged or discharged too quickly?
charging or discharging too quickly is going to create heat.
Battery could overheat, give off flammable gas, or explode. Which of the following frequencies has the lowest value for maximum permissible exposure limit?
This is that chart 9.4 on page 914.
And it's the 50 megahertz has
It's
the
going to
lowest.
be, 10, 50, 2 meters, and 220. All four of those will be in there.
And the worst is what, 80 meters, isn't it?
No, these are the worst. These are the worst ones. These are the lowest values. And that's 50 watts. These are the lowest values here.
That's on 912 too. With
The
the
highest
little-
would be, the highest danger would be 80 meters according to the chart.
No, that's
No.
watts. You're reading it wrong.
The one on 912?
the one on 912 is you can have up to 100. That's before it gets dangerous.
Yeah,
Oh.
on 912, you're 30 megahertz to 300 megahertz.
Right.
And that's
right.
that VHF range.
That was the last questions. Dib, 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 dib. That's all, folks. That's the end of the module. So we are done with the book. What's everybody think? You ready? Questions, comments, concerns?
Getting there.
Getting there?
Daniel
How are you-
said,
Go ahead.
Daniel said that there are like 2 questions from this chapter, but there's like 50 questions in the chapter.
There'll be 2 on the test.
There will be 2, so prepare all 50.
You prepare for all 50. I told Jim my brother's philosophy. If Jim would just teach him the 35 questions on the test, he'd have taken it by now and pass it. But each test is different.
Yeah. So in the back on chapter 11, AC and DC power circuits, antenna installations, RF hazards, all of the sub-element 10, electrical safety, has 3 questions, 3 groups. So there is, we just covered a lot, but you'll only get 3 exam questions in 3 different groups. So remember to check all of the above. So shall we run through an exam? Anybody up for an exam? Take a
Sure.
practice test?
Sure.
Sounds like fun.
Okay, so
Uh,
unmute and yell out the right answer. Which of the following describes a type of antenna loading? A, strengthening the radiating elements of a beam antenna to better resist wind damage. B, inserting a resistor in a radiating portion of the antenna to make it resonant. C, installing a spring in the base of a mobile vertical antenna to make it more flexible. Or D, inserting an inductor in a radiating portion of the antenna to make it electrically longer.
E,
Is it B?
Bravo.
BB.
Not a resistor.
That's D.
This one
Yeah.
here,
Yeah,
Yeah.
electrically longer.
make it
Yeah.
electrically longer.
Okay.
Which of the following is an important safety precaution to observe when putting up an antenna? A, all of these are correct. Look for and stay clear of any overhead electrical wires. Wear a ground strap connected to your wrist at all times. Insulate Oh, insulate the base of the tower to avoid lightning strikes.
B.
Bravo.
Bravo is going to be correct. We'll soon find out though. What could happen if a person accidentally touched your antenna while transmitting? A, they might receive a
A.
A, let's just go with A, because that's
Alpha.
what it
Yeah.
is.
We'll make it easy for you, Jim.
Make it easy for me. Oh, did you notice how they move? All of these questions are correct. It's not necessarily at the bottom.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All the questions above are correct. Yeah.
Yeah. What type of tones are used to control repeaters linked by an Internet Relay Linking Project IRLP protocol? Echolink, DTMF, Subaudible, or CSS?
Is it Bravo? DTMF?
Bravo, sounds good.
Yep.
Which of the following best describes DMR, digital mobile radio? A technique for time multiplexing two digital voice signals on a single 12.5 kilohertz repeater channel? An automatic computer logging technique for hands-off logging when communicating while operating a vehicle, or a digital technique for transmitting on two repeater inputs simultaneously for automatic error correction, or an automatic position tracking mode for FM mobiles communicating through repeaters.
Alpha?
Alpha sounds good. Who is accountable should a repeater inadvertently retransmit communications that violate the FCC rules? Both the originating station and the repeater owner,
Mhm.
the control operator of the originating station, the owner of the repeater, or the control operator of the repeater.
Bravo?
I hear
Alpha.
It's the originating station. Yeah. It used to be A, but they've changed that, make it the originating station.
Okay.
Because
Well, it's
The-
pretty, it's, everybody would start pulling the repeaters off the air if they were responsible for
Yeah.
everything came across them.
They
They're
would
an
have to-
automatic control and they have to listen to it 24/7.
Yep. So it would be the person that started it out in the first place.
Now, if the repeater owner hears it, it's his obligation to stop it.
Stop it.
But
Yep.
yeah,
it's just strange it used to be A. That's
well, yeah. We had in real estate, we had what we call innocent misrepresentation. So if you didn't know, or you did know, you passed the information on and it was wrong, you're liable for it. So
What does the term traffic refer to in net operation? Formal messages exchanged by net stations, the number of stations checking in or out of the net, requests to activate the net by a served agency, operations by mobile or portable stations.
Alpha.
Alpha?
Which of the following battery types is rechargeable? Nickel metal hydride, lead acid gel cell, lithium ion, or all of these choices are correct?
Delta?
What is a band plan beyond the privileges established by the FCC? A plan devised by a club to indicate frequency band usage, a mandated list of operating schedules, a list of scheduled net frequencies, or a voluntary guideline for using different modes or activities within an amateur band?
Is it A? Alpha? Or D?
Alpha.
Delta. Voluntary guideline for
Voluntary guideline.
using different modes. Why should wiring between power source and radio be heavy gauge wire and kept as short as possible to provide a good counterpoise for the antenna? To avoid voltage falling below that needed for proper operation, or to avoid RF interference, or all of these choices are correct?
Charlie.
Do I hear any bravos?
Yep.
Do we go with Charlie, or do we go with, which one do we go with?
I thought it was Charlie, but
I thought it was
Me
Charlie
too.
too.
But you look as if you want to take Bravo, so I'll go.
You
with
want to look for
Charlie.
Steve, Bravo.
Okay, no, I'm going to go with your guys' answer. But I think it's to
Okay.
avoid the voltage, because the longer you have the wire, the more of a voltage drop that's going to come across it. But I'll do Charlie. I might be wrong.
No.
What formula is used to calculate current in a circuit? Current I equals voltage E added to resistance R. Current I equals voltage E divided by resistance R.
Oh,
Current equals
Equals by R.
voltage multiplied by resistance, or current.
voltage divided.
Which one?
I think it's Bravo.
Which of these terms, or which of these items would be useful for hidden transmitter hunt? All of these choices are correct. A calibrated noise bridge, a directional antenna, or a calibrated SWR meter?
Charlie.
Charlie, yeah.
Which of the following effects might cause radio signals to be heard despite obstructions between the transmitting and receiving stations? Faraday rotation, knife edge diffraction, Doppler shift, or quantum tunneling?
Is it Bravo? Knife edge diffraction?
You don't want to go with quantum tunneling?
Don't have a quantum computer yet.
I don't either.
That's only for Stargates.
Which type of modulation is most commonly used for VHF and UHF voice repeaters? PSK, FM, single sideband, or AM? Most commonly used.
Bravo.
Why should the outer jacket of coaxial cable be resistant to ultraviolet light? Ultraviolet light can damage the jacket and allow water to enter the cable. Ultraviolet and RF signals can mix, causing interference. Ultraviolet light can increase losses in a cable's jacket. Ultraviolet resistant jackets prevent harmonic radiation.
Alpha.
Alpha.
Oh, yeah.
What is the ability to store energy in an electric field called? Resistance, inductance, capacitance, or tolerance?
Charlie.
What is the formula for converting frequency to approximate wavelength in meters? Wavelength in meters is equals frequency in hertz multiplied by 300. Wavelength in meters equals frequency in megahertz divided by 300. Wavelength in meters equals frequency in hertz divided by 300. Wavelength in meters equals 300 divided by the frequency in megahertz.
Delta.
Which of the following is a good electrical insulator? Glass, glass, aluminum, mercury, or copper?
Alpha.
Alpha.
By the way, it's one of the things that I picked up going through these exams. They sometimes slip in kilohertz versus megahertz. And
Yes.
you know, the numbers are obvious, but the hertzes are wrong.
Yep.
Yep.
What weather condition would decrease range at microwave frequencies? High winds, cooler temperatures, low barometric pressure, or precipitation?
Delta.
D.
What are the names of the two electrodes on a diode? Plus and minus, gate and base, source and drain, or anode and cathode?
Delta.
Delta.
What is a Part 15 device? An unlicensed device that may emit low-power radio signals on frequencies used by a licensed service.
Alpha.
And alpha sounds good. We just covered that.
They may emit the signals, but they can't cause interference.
When is an amateur station permitted to transmit without a control operator? Never.
Alpha.
When
The FCC wants someone to be responsible.
what kind of, I like when they put the answer first so I can stop. What kind of hazard might exist when a power supply is turned off or disconnected? What looks best?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Yep, Charlie.
From which of the following locations may an FCC licensed amateur station transmit?
Alpha.
Now, it's also, you have to have the permission of the boat captain or like vessel captain, but you can transmit in international waters when you're on a documented vessel.
That's as long as they're sober.
Not using a beverage antenna or gin pole.
Well,
What?
look at the Valdez water or the oil spill.
Oh, Valdez one, yeah, well,
He was drinking.
that pilot could navigate his boat even when he was drunk, but his co-pilot couldn't do it when he was sober.
Yeah.
That was a
What?
problem.
What is a transceiver?
A
Alpha.
Alpha.
All righty, here we go. Which of the following frequencies is equal to 28,400 kilohertz?
Do the decimal
Charlie?
place three
Charlie.
places, 28.4,
Charlie.
but you got to go from kilohertz to megahertz. And this is one you brought up earlier. Yes.
Which of the following are inputs to a satellite tracking program? All of these are correct. The weight of the satellite, the Keplerian elements, or the last observed time of zero Doppler shift.
I see.
It's Charlie, right?
Charlie.
Or Kepler.
Which of the following displays an electrical voltage or an electrical quantity as a numeric? Where the heck did that go?
That's going to be a meter, I think.
Yeah.
It is.
Which amateur band are you using when your station is transmitting on 146.52 megahertz?
Bravo.
300 divided by 146 is going to give us about 2.
B.
Which of the following is true about PL259 type coax connectors? They're Bennett connector. They're commonly
Charlie.
used at HF frequencies.
Yes.
Yeah, those side look right.
That one looks right.
Yeah, because they're not watertight.
What types of amateur stations can automatically retransmit the signals of other amateur stations?
Bravo.
I think it's Bravo.
Um,
What is auxiliary though?
Similar to
Similar to repeater.
a repeater.
I know, but like, where have we encountered them? Repeaters, yes. Space stations, yes. I've never
You're
heard
gonna-
of them.
You're going to encounter them along the streets of Wanda Fuqua on the Clallam County 14676 machine. They got 3 or 4 of those alternate receivers along there. And the receiver then transmit to a link to the main transmitter for retransmission.
Why aren't
on
they
it.
just called a repeater?
Because they're a listening station that
Ah.
aids the repeater's reception. Clallam County is like Norway. It's all these fjords, these sharp valleys going up here, and it's hard to get the signal up the valley. And that's what the auxiliary receivers do for the main
Okay.
system.
Which instrument is used to measure electric current? Wave. Uh-oh, somebody's getting in trouble. All righty, here we go. Circuit skills. What is component number 4 in T2? What is this one?
The transformer.
Delta.
Transformer.
It's 2 coils.
What is the advantage of having multiple receive bandwidth choices in a multi-mode transceiver? Increases the amount of offset between receive and transmit frequencies. Permits noise or interference reduction by selecting a bandwidth matching the mode.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Last one. Which of the following is a purpose of amateur radio service as stated in FCC rules and regulations? Providing personal
Charlie.
radio communication.
Charlie.
Charlie, there we go.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right, here we go. Are we a pass or a fail?
Only 5 on it.
Pass. Come on.
86.
34 out of 35. Woohoo!
Which one did you miss?
Which
We
one is
did
it?
really well.
Probably that Charlie one that was about RF interference.
We missed T number 4. So
Let's go back and look at that.
You need the questions.
number 1, that is correct. It's a green. Number 2, that is correct. It's a green.
Another Irish.
Number 3, that is correct. It's a green. 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 Where's our red?
Is this the Green New Deal?
This is the Green New Deal.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
That was
Okay, let's read it. Go ahead.
So you flip this over or show the correct answer.
Uh,
To avoid falling below the needed.
That's what you said, Jim.
That's what I said, but
Yeah.
I said, well, I'll go ahead and go with a C.
But we didn't want you to be perfect. See?
Yeah, so, and in each one of these, you can pull in there and look at people have put in explanations in there, so that's kind of cool too.
Where are
Look at
these
that.
exams?
This is up at the hamstudy.org.
Is this a freebie or you have to pay for it?
This is the freebie.
Okay.
And so we have enough time. Do you want to do an ARRL?
Are they more difficult?
They're about the same, but
They've got to be the same here.
it's
Oh,
just
this
a
is,
mix.
no, I don't want to do that. I already have an account.
Yeah, just log in.
Yeah, go up to the
Where's the
login. Up
login?
here, the top
Oh,
left.
there it is. There it is. That's what I was trying to find. Take a practice exam.
Yep.
Now, who's doing dishes?
Sorry.
I hope they get
Multitasking.
clean.
Multitasking, that's fine. What electrical parameter is controlled by a potentiometer?
Alpha.
Yeah.
Are amateur station control operators ever permitted to operate outside the frequency privileges of their license class?
No.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo, I hear a bravo, and I agree with that.
Okay.
In the immediate safety of human
Right.
life or protection of property, which of the following, hang on a sec, I don't need the last pass. Which of the following could cause you to cure, wait, which of the following could you use to cure distorted audio caused by RF current on the shield of a microphone cable?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Mhm.
What is the Internet Radio Linking Project, IRLP?
Delta.
Delta.
Which of the following is an example of automatic control?
Voting.
Is it a repeater?
Yes.
What would cause a broadcast AM or FM radio to receive an amateur transmission unintentionally?
Is that Bravo?
Bravo.
Bravo. Yeah.
Bravo.
Bravo. Isn't it?
He's trying to make us miss one.
What-
Clever lad.
You're watching where that arrow is. What may result when correspondence from FCC is returned as undeliverable because the grantee failed to provide and maintain a correct mailing address with the FCC?
Verification of the station.
Charlie.
Charlie. Which Q signals indicates that you are receiving interference from other stations?
Is that cute?
Alpha.
It's Alpha, right?
URM is man-made. QRN is
M,
natural.
Natural.
QSB is change frequencies. Or no, QSY. What is QSB, Daniel? I forgot.
Fading.
Okay.
Fading. Yeah, that sounds right. QTH is your home.
Yep.
What is meant by the statement that a satellite is operating in UV? That would be the band.
Mm-hmm.
Uplink, downlink.
Bravo.
And uplink is UHF and downlink is VHF. So that's going to be B.
Mm-hmm.
What can happen to a lead acid storage battery if charged or discharged too quickly?
Boom.
Bravo.
What is the component number 9 in figure T2? What is this one?
Alpha.
Alpha.
What does the abbreviation RF refer to?
Bravo.
Yep. Radio frequencies of all types. Should be a free question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
What is a beam antenna? An omnidirectional antenna invented by Clarence Beam?
Charlie.
Charles.
Charlie. Yeah.
Which of the following is a good electrical insulator?
Did this
Charlie.
one.
We had that one.
Yep.
Mhm.
Which of the following is an important safety precaution to observe when putting up an antenna tower?
We did this one too.
Delta.
Delta.
And you see how these are flipped around. They're not necessarily in the same A, B, or A, B, C, and D. They
Order.
flip them around.
Yeah, we can't memorize that.
Under which of the following circumstances are amateur stations authorized to transmit signals related to broadcasting, program production, news gathering, assuming no other means is available?
It's emergency.
Oh, wait a minute. I think it's Bravo.
Is it?
Delta.
I thought it was Delta. But
Under which is concerned amateur authorized transmission of the broadcasting program. Yeah, it has to do with satellites. Space shuttle. Yeah, I'll go with Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo it is. Which of the following actions might amateur operators take to prevent exposure to RF radiation in excess of FCC supplied limits? Carefully read this one. What's the best?
Yeah.
Delta is
Relocate the antenna.
correct. Yep. Which of these components can be used as an electronic switch, or an amplifier? That's oscillator, voltmeter, potentiometer, or
Transistor.
a transistor. Yep. Why should you not set your transmit frequency to be exactly at the edge of an amateur band or subband?
Is it?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Charlie, sounds good.
Mhm.
What is the name of a circuit that generates a signal at a specific frequency?
Delta.
Which of the following is an appropriate receive filter bandwidth for minimizing noise and interference in CW reception?
Charlie.
Yeah, I think so.
Charlie is the narrowest for CW. When using a directional antenna, how might your station be able to access a distant repeater if buildings or obstructions are blocking the direct line of sight path?
Bravo.
Yeah,
Bravo.
Why should the outer jacket of coaxial cable be resistant to ultraviolet light?
Who did this one? I think it was Bravo.
Just had this one.
What formula is used to calculate the resistance in a circuit?
Voltage divided by current.
E divided by I.
What did we say?
I thought it was Delta.
Delta.
Resistance in circuit. Be Bravo, wouldn't it?
Resistance is the
It's
resistance V over IR. R
So
voltage
delta.
divided by current.
E equals IR. So then
Delta.
He's on top, yeah.
Okay. What type of modulation is most commonly used for VHF packet radio transmissions?
FM. Bravo.
Which of the following restrictions apply when a non-licensed person is allowed to speak to a foreign station using a station under control of a Technician Class control operator?
Delta.
Delta.
What is the national calling frequency for FM simplex operations in the 2-meter band?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Which instrument is used to measure electric current?
Delta.
Which of the following effects might cause radio signals to be heard despite obstructions between transmitting and receiving stations?
Get that off of there.
Oh,
You don't like my my quantum tunneling still?
No, we're sharper than that.
Knife edge.
Good job.
What is the amount of change measured in decibels of a power increasing from 20 watts to 200 watts?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie.
mhm.
What is the FCC Part 97 definition of a beacon?
Oh yeah. Bravo.
Mhm.
Yep, bravo.
What is the function of component number 2 in figure 1?
Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo. Sounds good. What are the frequency limits of the UHF spectrum? Watch megahertz and kilohertz here.
Oh yeah, that's the one I was referring to. That's
Yep,
the
watch
megahertz
your
and kilohertz.
megahertz and kilohertz.
Yeah,
Delta then, not Charlie.
delta, it's a 300 megahertz.
Okay. What type of transmission is indicated by the term NTSC?
I thought it Delta.
Yep, it is delta.
Yep.
In general, what happens as the frequency of a signal passing through a coaxial cable is increased?
Delta.
Okay, here we go. And the answer is 97. We missed one.
Take a look at number 5.
Number 5.
Oh, it's okay.
Which one did we miss? So we got,
There you go.
there it is. Somebody said space. The
Yep.
correct answer is only where communications.
With immediate life, of human life or property.
It's the news gathering, I think, because that's not part of what ham is, right?
Not for broadcasting.
Or broadcasting in general.
Yeah.
Boy, I thought there was an answer in the book that talked about the space shuttle in reference to that.
There is.
That was transmitting music.
Yeah, right.
Oh, boy, now that's a little tricky.
It is.
Yeah.
Sneaky.
Under which of the following circumstances are amateur stations authorized to transmit signals related to broadcasting, program production, news gathering, assuming no other, there's the key, assuming no other means are available?
Well, I guess the other point is that if you look at B, how can you broadcast to the space shuttle? And the fact that you're broadcasting isn't directional at that point, right?
Well,
Yeah.
Actually, by definition, broadcasting is not amateur radio. We transmit.
Broadcasting is signals meant for the general public.
Right, exactly.
So those are your 2 free license exam places to go. Those are good to test. So congratulations, y'all passed.
Now, each time you go to Ham Study or ARL, they change the questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So each one of these, the question for technician is, how many were in there? Oh, it doesn't have the number in the question pool. Daniel, how many questions are in the question pool again?
About
For-
430 for the technician, about 450 for the general.
So so back on chapter 11 has the question pools, and you can go through all of those and do these practice sessions.
I want to share with the group back in 1963 when I took my novice exam, which was basically the technician back then. The pool was not 400 and some, the pool was 150 questions. So this is the reason I'm I'm doing this, because there's 300 and some new questions that didn't exist when I took it as a kid. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, when we got them, we got the questions in 84, there's 500.
wow.
So it's come down a little bit from 500.
Well, Jim, you've done a great job. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Yep.
sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Hey, so just out of curiosity, I sent everybody links to sign up for the online testing. Is anybody interested in doing the test in the next week or so?
Yeah, I'm scheduled for Saturday at 10 o'clock. So
Good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd sign up.
Okay. Because as of the other day, the links that I sent in the email, Scott mentioned, hey, you better check and make sure they got the links because nobody signed up. So
But these are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday links, aren't they?
yeah.
What was the Saturday one that somebody was mentioning?
there's 4 spaces available on Saturday, according to the proctor.
Scott.
And yeah, Scott. And I'm scheduled for the 10 o'clock one.
Okay. Yeah.
First 30 minute block.
I must be looking at a different email because I only saw March 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah. I
Maybe
think that was
changed it.
these 8, 9, and 10 were specifically secretly hidden from the public, so they were just given out to our group that I sent to everybody on the technician. Okay. Daniel, is there any update on the possibility of in person? I know you had mentioned you were still
Get on
working.
that tomorrow morning on that, and I'll try to get something set up, scheduled for Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
So
Hey,
I want to do this Saturday, next Saturday. So and
Daniel?
I'll know by tonight. Yes.
That's Bill. I'm not sure I'm going to be ready to do the general on Saturday afternoon. So when's the next test? The scheduled time?
We'll make it several times during this month here.
Oh, several times. Okay.
So yeah.
I guess we can talk this at general. In a
If you're
couple of
ready
nights,
for the technician, go for the technician. Get licensed, and
Yeah,
then
I'll
we'll
get
upgrade
that.
quickly, because he's going to do direct entry on that thing, and you should have your license by Monday morning.
That's
If you're
wonderful.
doing it on Saturday, you'll have them Monday morning.
Right.
And there won't be a problem with us going in after that.
Okay.
You don't want to
said,
have 2 applications in at one time.
well, right. Thank you. If you do it in person, you just said something about going up to Ballard.
Yes,
Okay. That'll be the instruction where to go and all that stuff.
I'll have all that information for you. I'll be 77th and 24th. Yeah, what I'm looking for is the teen center at the northwest corner of 77th and 24th.
Teen Center.
Yeah, it's 7701 24th Avenue Northwest.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if you guys make sure to do a few more of those sample tests, and again, if once you get licensed, don't hesitate to still come back to Daniel and I for questions. We're always here and we're always available to help if you guys have questions, or we can get more people involved if we don't know the answer. So it's a brotherhood, sisterhood of hams, and you're in the family now. So taking the class, tons of fun, and I appreciate you guys hanging out and doing it through these last few weeks. And the reason that I'm doing these classes is that gentleman right there who taught me. So I'm trying to push it forward too. So thanks, Daniel, for all your work and all your help
You're
too.
welcome. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Daniel, when did you start doing this? I mean, with the teaching?
2007
Oh,
in
you-
2008. So it's been 12 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
We got about
Yeah.
2,400 students like that we've got through the classes.
Oh.
Besides other training, because we've had 250 in the D-Star seminars. We put on 4 of those. We had 54, 108, 58, and then 35 for 4 different years. We've had other classes in there. But out of the licensing classes, we've got like 2,400 students.
Wow. It's quite a
And-
commitment for a period of time.
Yeah.
Quite a commitment.
Yeah,
And if
Great.
I got to know Daniel real well because I was the trustee for education and training for Mike and Key. And I'd call Daniel once a month just before the board meeting and remind him all the things he needed to generate. And he was
I
al-
generate a report twice a month for the Mike and Key.
and he was always on top of things. Really great guy.
Yeah. You guys are really impressive where you share your time and the commitments you make to it. So this is,
That's what I hear. We're kind of special across the nation, but
yeah.
it's just something that kind of fell together. We got great teachers that love to do it, and it became a lot of fun. We've been doing 15, 17 classes a year for 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what keeps us going is the gin pole. That's really good.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go.
Beverages and the antennas.
Yeah, beverage antennas. Yeah. Curious, Daniel, what's your profession? You've been doing.
I'm a high-rise window cleaner by trade. I run my own window cleaning business, pressure washing and exterior maintenance. Today I was doing accounting work. I did an audit for a church out in Linwood, and I did a presentation to their board. Actually, they had 2 board meetings with that. So I'd written up 9 pages for an audit. I got an accounting and finance degree from University of Alaska Fair, Anchorage, with some master level work, as well as some professional accounting classes.
You had mentioned earlier that you had been in Alaska or some experience in
Yeah.
Alaska. I guess that's from your educational, but you work with communications guys and stuff like that up there, military background, right?
I'm not military background. My dad was military background. I'm actually a high-rise window cleaner. That's really my background. I have a theology degree. I got a mining degree from Alaska, and then I went out to my bachelor's of business administration with accounting and finance emphasis.
Wow.
So I got about 10 years in college. I've got over 300 semester credit hours.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And what I did with these classes, I took what I learned best with, the methods, and I used them to teach with.
Yeah.
So the comment that George had put in the chat, did you click on these?
On all 3, yes, and they're filled. They're all claimed. If you click one, you'll see it.
I just signed up for the 9th one, and they said 0 of 4 slots filled. So I just signed up for the March 9th one, like in the last few minutes.
Scroll down.
0 of 4 slots have been claimed, so you can register.
Okay.
That means there's
Yeah,
these are all
Wide open.
open.
Register your wife also.
without her permission.
Yeah, if do a different time slot so you both can have you can keep computer individually, but go ahead and register her right now.
Yeah, these 3 links are for the technicians only, and that's why they're secret. If you go out on the website, you won't see them in the regular link. He gave us these private ones to do March 8th, 9th, and 10th. And then I'm going to work also with the generals. Our last class in the general will be on Wednesday, and we'll get some links for those folks too.
Is that going to be Wednesday or Tuesday?
Actually, I need to do it on Wednesday because
right.
my Mike and Key board meeting
Yep.
is on Tuesday, and I'm the treasurer. I kind of, and I'm also the I'm also the Zoom person, so I
Yeah,
have to
the Zoom
start the
master.
Zoomaluma.
He's a Zoom master. How many members are in the Mike and Key?
234 roughly.
Yeah, it's one of
Growing.
the larger clubs in the King County, Pierce County, Snohomish County area. We got people from Port Angeles and Squimmin Club as well. So it is one of the larger clubs. It is probably the most active club. It's well worth joining the club. There's a lot of things we have done this last 2 years with Dave Yarborough as president. And he went through all my classes, by the way, too. But he's done a lot of things to make it ham friendly and for the new person. So there's a lot of ham friendly Zoom classes or meetings and like that.
Yeah.
It's
So right now,
$12, but you can register, and then the board looks at you and the membership approves you. Then you have to pay your $12, but it's well worth the $12 to get involved with the Mike and Key. It's a great club.
oh,
I'll
and
send-
Daniel, did you tell him the secret sauce, the
No.
active code that if you take Daniel and my classes and you pass the test, your first year is free.
We'll comp you first year.
It's legitimized bribery. It works well.
Yeah.
No, really, we're serious about it. Robin's in the club, Jim's in the club, I'm in the club, and it is the best club around. Tacoma's bigger. Vancouver, Clark County is a little bigger. They're also active. You got a good club in Spokane. There's about 8 of them actually over there. But in the Seattle area, the Mike and Key is probably the best club to be in.
So we have 242 right now.
And that has grown by about 30 this year.
Yeah. This year we with all of the Zoom meetings and things, people got bored and hey, let's go do ham stuff.
It's one of the good things about COVID. So
We're having right now with the classes, we're having 6 meetings a week.
amazing.
Or, yeah, more. We got 3 or 4 a week on a normal basis. I'm not sure how many you've had since the beginning of the Zoom situation in April, but man, it's just unbelievable the number of Zoom meetings we've had for different purposes, in small group meetings like that.
Yep. So we have daily, Monday, Tuesday, all the way through Saturday, Sunday at 5:30. There's a Zoom meeting that's just a rag chew, where you get on and you know health and welfare,
Talk
all
anything.
of that fun stuff. Talk anything. And then on Monday we have Morse code practice, and then on the Tuesday is our that was our general, and then on Wednesday is WinLink Wednesday, which is now kind of converted itself over to an extension of TechNet. So we have our technical net on the 2-meter repeater, and then we switch over and do more technical questions in the Zoom if they want to extend it. Thursday is the extra class license test, and then Friday used to be FL Digi, but now it's more Nostalgia Net, where we talk about nostalgic things, old radios or old computers, TVs, or
old ham operators,
or old people just talking about themselves.
And when Jim talks about the technical net, that's where you get to ask your questions you don't understand, and you're not embarrassed because you're asking them.
and you got some sharp people on there too. Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the Mike and Key Club, it's amazing. When we're meeting in person, I guess the big event of the year is Field Day up at Fort Flagler, up by Port Townsend. And we also have Well, we had about 5 different major events. You know, the flea market, we used to call it the flea market, now it's the swap meet, and that's in March. And basically we host hams from probably about 4 states that come in, 3, 4 states,
Yes.
Washington.
Yep.
And so you can buy and sell equipment there, you know, stuff you have, you can look for things. It's really amazing. And we set up on Friday, do it all day Saturday, and, you know, take it down Sunday. And that's been going on since since the 84.
35 years, I think it is, except this year.
35 years, yeah.
Is that going to happen with COVID this year?
Nope.
No.
We didn't do it
That's what I
last year, and we won't do it this year.
How about Flagler, the summer event for Flagler? Is that
No,
going to be
it's
off also?
last year
Yeah.
and this year. But
We
hopefully-
believe it is.
It's been called. We got an update from the Parks Department. They're only opening up the campground and only 15 people from 2 different families, so that's not going to hold us.
It's bad. And then in the summer in August, we have a picnic up at South Lake, Washington, near the Boeing plant there. What's the name of the place? Gene.
Coolan Park.
Yeah, Coulon Park. And that's a lot of fun. And, you know, there's a good family orientation as well. You know, we support the Salvation Army and do the bell ringing at Christmas. And there's a lot of activities and a lot of good camaraderie. It's really a good club.
Jim,
Yeah.
can I just do a quick plug for Com Academy?
What's that?
For
Com Academy is
Yeah,
on. It's going to go digital this year, and I think it's going to be free, as I heard about it.
It is free.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I'm enrolled already. So
Catherine's
Yeah.
helping organize.
it's in April.
Com Academy is on
Is that April?
It's April
Yeah.
10th.
I think it's
April
April.
10 and 11.
Yeah,
It's
last year-
well worth going to. They have a beginner's course, a series of classes you can take as a beginner, which is really helps you advance in your skills and selection of radios, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's very, very good course where you typically they'll get 300 to 400 people in emergency preparedness from Oregon through Canada, BC, Idaho, Montana, all of it. It's really a great event.
So this year it's a little bit different because it's online. There's just going to be one track of presentations. But if you go to the website, you can see there are 10 sort of plenary speakers, and there are currently about 1,200 people registered for it. So it's going to be very well attended, and you can pick whatever sessions appeal to you and attend those.
What are the 2 dates? Oh, 10th. Okay.
10 and 11.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
But hopefully next year it will be the in-person, like 3-day event where you can pick a different set of classes depending on your interest and skill level.
Yeah, we went 2 years ago, and it was very, very good. We enjoyed it.
It's always been good, Jim.
Cool. Well, it is 3 minutes. Last things for 3 minutes, then I'll close out the recording.
The
Thanks,
other thing
everybody.
we can probably talk about, Jim, is ARRL. ARRL is the National Ham Club. They print a lot of books for us. They print an RF safety book. They they have been printing a grounding book for grounding our stations and like that. They put on the course we just gone through, the questions like that. They do lobbying for us in Congress on the national level and international level. It's $49 a year, plus you get a monthly magazine on that, which is generally 100 pages long.
We have 4 now, Daniel.
Yeah. Well, you get 1 printed, and then you get the other 3 are digital.
Digital.
Yep.
Which is
So,
yeah.
they've been our biggest publisher in here, and one of our biggest advocates. So $49 a year, that's really cheap to support amateur radio and the resources they give us on that. ARRL, American Radio Relay League is what it's called.
Mhm.
A great organization.
Lots of fun stuff there.
All right. Who can identify the symbol on the left there?
That's the ARL symbol. It's the
Nope.
symbol of an antenna.
Amateur radio antenna.
Yeah.
And a
Antenna and a coil and ground.
There you go.
Well, thanks, guys. It's
Thank
been
you.
great.
Thank you.
And if you don't pass, you can come back to the class for free.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah.
pass.
Thank you.
You're gonna pass.
We're gonna pass.
You mean
The
we
general
can?
may be a bit more challenging, but
You mean we can be repeat offenders and not have to pay? That's pretty good.
That's good, Jeff.
Yep.
And if you get it 3 times, you're a lifer.
And if you want to, you can come back and teach with me. Now that you are passing your test, you can come and teach with me.
3 strikes and you get a gin pole. Yep.
All righty.
I made my wood foul. I got one out in my yard.
I want to know more about the directional beverage antenna, though.
Actually,
Yeah.
my best friend who's in East Texas, we grew up together in Seattle, AC7X, and he and I put up a beverage antenna. He has 29 acres in East Texas, which is near Louisiana, so it's a beautiful part of Texas with the trees and stuff. And the beverage antenna, I think, is 569 feet or something like that, and it's only 12 feet above the ground, and so it has extremely low terrestrial noise and tremendous amplification for signals for receiving.
Oh,
The
my.
problem with the beverage antenna, if you have enough property, is that you hear everybody else so significantly well, but other people may not be able to hear you unless you have a really good transmitting antenna. So it's just for receiving. You can't transmit.
Yeah.
Okay. Ding
Thanks
ding.
again. Good night, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Good luck on taking your tests.
You too.